Welcome to the IDP Hunter Podcast, hosted at the RPO Network. Today, I am joined by my guest, Steve Schultz, known as Big Steve, FF, over on Twitter. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Steve?
Hey, nothing much. The audience, you guys know me. I'm the IDP Hunter. You can follow me on Twitter. I write for the Fantasy Six Pack. I do the waivers article. I do the rankings over at Fantasy Pros. I'm currently a top 5 IDP ranker as far as the accuracy contest goes. And I also write over at the IDP Center. I do the Streamer of the Week. And I also write for the RPO Network, which Steve works for. I write for the RPO Network. I do the Every Down Linebacker. That's an article I'm very proud of. What I wanted to do is I wanted to talk about Steve's latest work. Steve does the IDP waiver wire article over at the RPO Network. If you guys haven't seen it yet, check out the RPO Network. We have not one, not two, but 3 top 5 rankers. Top 15, excuse me. 3 top 5, that'd be pretty impressive. But yeah, we have 3 top 15 rankers. And we have betting, we have dynasty, we have rankings, but we also have great articles like the one Steve wrote here. And he has tons of guys littered throughout this thing. Go ahead and check it out. Steve, I was hoping today maybe we can share some of your insights, some of your players. Was wondering if we can go over maybe some of your waiver wire pickups, some of your stream players, whatever you're thinking, trends, usage. I'll kick it off to you, Steve. Who you got first when you're thinking of waivers goes?
So this week, I'm definitely looking at the Giants and Azeez Ojulari. Kayvon Thibodeau, he was just put on IR. He's going to be out for at least 4 games. And if you look at the usage for Ojulari, he pretty much replaced Thibodeau, and his snaps went up from like 30 to 40% to 77%.
Nice.
So that's a huge share. And he came through on Sunday Night Football. He had 2 sacks, and he just looks good. And he's got Brian Burns opposite him. I mean, I think he's somebody that you can get out there in most leagues, and he's in about as good of a situation as you can be. And he's a very talented pass rusher.
So I agree with you there. Azeez Ojulari, he's only owned in 2% of leagues. And like I said, he's been hovering around that 30-40, like Steve said, and now he's at 77. He had not only 2 sacks, but he had a forced fumble against Joe Burrow. The fact that they put Thibodeau on the IR, what was that, I think last week? That gives us another solid 3-4 games with this guy. Again, he's only owned in 2% of leagues. And if you play on Sleeper like me and Steve do a lot, you can put him as a DL or an LB. So that's an excellent pickup. That's probably one of my top priorities of the week. Do you have any other DLs?
Well, it's also important to also mention with the New York Giants defensive line. I mean, you've also got Dexter Lawrence there in the middle who has 7 sacks this season. So it's not just Burns, but the entire defensive line is just – it's the best part of their football team besides Malik Neighbors. But, I mean, that's definitely something I would concentrate on. As far as another guy who just came back, Kalijah Kancey for Tampa Bay. I feel like every week I bring up a different Buccaneer. Like there's always somebody that's like popping up as a playmaker on their defense. It's just, it's becoming a trend. But Kalijah Kancey, first game back, he's playing in the middle with Logan Hall. He had a sack his first game back against the Saints. And I mean, you can chalk that up to playing against Spencer Rattler, but he's a very talented pass rusher. And the Buccaneers do have a good defense, and I think he's only going to ramp up here. He's probably looking at 65, 70% of snaps. And he's somebody, if you're in a defensive tackle required league, you've got to jump on Kancey at this point.
Oh, yeah, heck yeah. I will throw back at you with Kancey. People forget he was a first-round draft pick. 21% rostered. He's coming off an injury. I've had him stashed. We play this King of IDP League, Steve, over on Facebook. It's a pretty popular league. It's kind of like the best of the best. It's like a karate tournament. It's like Mortal Kombat, if you will. Sub-Zero. You get scored. We got all these different writers that are on that thing, and I just filled my IR with guys like Bland, Cansey, what have you, just players that will play later on. And I was shocked because I just pulled him off the IR, and he came back and he got a sack right then and there. So thank you for that. A lot of guys in the DL thing. I'll throw one back to you, Steve. I don't know if you're tracking this guy, but Josh Sweat only owned in 28% of leagues. He's now had back-to-back sack games too. The Eagles run a good rotation front four. Say what you want about that defense. The front four is not the problem with the Eagles.
Exactly, yeah. And, I mean, Josh Sweat's one of those guys who's been productive over the past few years, but he's always underrated, because they had Hassan Reddick and then they brought in Bryce Huff. So you're always thinking about the big money players, but Josh Sweat's just, I mean, he's probably been close to double-digit sacks the past couple of seasons. He's a very productive player. He just doesn't get the love he deserves.
Right. I'm with you. I'm good with DL. Most of our fans, we're all about those linebackers. Before we move the linebacker, I just wanted to tell people too, over at the RPO network as well, we're running a promo. You can save $10 right now if you type in IDP Hunter for your promo subscription. You get $10 off year round. You get articles like Steve's. You get top rankings. Leo's been the number one ranker for 2 years in a row now. In addition to that, you get betting advice, you get gambling advice, and you get my latest Every Down Linebacker article. So you save $10 off RPO yearly subscription by typing in IDP Hunter. Steve, I'm going to transition a little bit. I'm going to pull up my article, and I'm just going to read some snippets of it. This is the RPO article I write called the Every Down Linebacker. And I do it every week. I do it based on trends, things I see, things I can pick up off waivers. And it's pretty impressive. It has everybody's snaps, their percentages, and just my closing thoughts on what I see going on, with some helpful tweets. So I'm about to kick this thing off, Steve. And I'll start the linebacker category here. When I'm looking at linebackers this week, it's week 7. It's bye weeks. Sometimes you have to play chess moves before other people realize it. The first player I got here, the guy's name is Chris Barnes. He's owned in 0% of leagues. 0% of leagues. He plays with the Cardinals. Okay. You haven't really seen him much because Kaiser White's your guy. Mac Wilson gets a healthy snap count too, but he's clearly the LB2. What I like about doing analyzation, especially doing an every down linebacker, if you just look at box scores, to me, that's just a lazy way to look at things, look at life. Barnes only received 74% of snaps, but that's not the point. When Kaiser White went down, he immediately took over. He wore the green dot, and he played 100% of snaps ever since. So I say that again. Barnes is a free player right now, owned in 0% of leagues. He wore the green dot. He was an every down linebacker, and he produced with 9 tackles. Right now, he's under the radar. This is my top waiver claim of the week because Barnes is a free linebacker right now. And if he gets assigned those play call duties again, you're going to have to check the waivers and you have to check the IR and see if Kaiser is still going to be hurt. But that's a free player you can plug and play anywhere. Any thoughts there, Steve?
No, he's definitely somebody that should be looked at this week. I had him on my article as well. So I was thinking the exact same thing. He stepped in for him, got to call the plays, and any linebacker who's got the green dot and 100% snaps, I mean, those are the guys that we're going after. So I'm totally on board there with you.
So similar vein. I got a guy here, and we're talking about injuries, which is usually the theme this time of year, right? Azeez Al-Shaair of the Texans, he got hurt, okay? He was an every down linebacker, okay? What ended up happening is he hurt his knee. Henry, however you say that, To'o, however you say that, right? He's a pretty good linebacker, but he's profiled as the LB2, okay? Nothing really spectacular there. He'll get you about 80-some% snap count. Last week, he got 83%. But anyway, he's your LB2. The player that stepped in who wore the green dot was a guy named Neville Hewitt. He, again, you're not going to see it on the box score line, but just like Henry Toa, he produced 7 tackles, but he did on 59% snap share. He wore the green dot and played every down after that. Now, the part where I'm going to challenge the audience here is, we're playing chess, not checkers, okay? Most people have it written up. Go ahead and pick up Neville Hewitt. I'm not going to fault you if that's your waiver wire claim this week, but Hewitt's been pretty much a journeyman most places. Again, we got to assume that the IR in this player clears. But the player I want to present to the audience here, and probably my second, if not first, waiver pickup of the week is Christian Harris. Christian Harris is primed to come off the IR right now. In fact, he was supposed to come off last week. He was supposed to. He could immediately come back in and replace the production that we're going to lose with Aziz. In fact, he's done it before. He's been a big baller, right, Steve? What did he do last year? 101 tackles on 65 solos. 65 solos. He's sitting on benches right now. He'll assume the LB1 mantle, and he's definitely better than Hewitt. The best part of all, this guy's only owned in 8% of leagues. So you can treat Hewitt as a waiver wire claim. I'm not going to fault you if you want to double down on this. But Christian Harris is the guy that I want moving forward because I can't predict that injury. But it just seems like one of these guys is stepping up while the other one's coming down. Any thoughts there, Steve?
Yeah, the whole thing's kind of a mess, right? With Al-Shair getting a knee injury and To'oto, I think I said that right. Probably not. He has, I think he had a concussion. So the whole, Christian Harris has production from last year. And he's got the resume. If he comes off IR, I feel pretty good that they're gonna give him the snaps. But it's just something you have to be careful about because you don't know if they're going to ease him into the game and give like Hewitt or one of their other special teamers some share of that in the linebacker rotation. But yeah, definitely something you have to watch for in terms of if either of those guys gets cleared to play, and then if they roll with Harris. I'm a little bit hesitant with that whole situation, at least until we see it for a week. But I see where you're coming from in terms of who's the most talented playmaker of that group who's going to be available.
What did Ricky Bobby say? If you're not first, you're last. Sometimes you got to make moves like this before everybody else does. But no one's talking Christian Harris at the moment. People are sweating that injury, and a couple people are talking Hewitt. If we're right about this, that's a free linebacker. Those are 2 free linebackers, actually, that you can get. I got one more, Steve. I'm going to kick it back to you as soon as I get this one off my chest. I kind of pulled up my tweet. Steve's seen it this week on Twitter. He liked it. Sometimes when we play IDP, it's like, where's Waldo? Remember the game, where's Waldo? You're trying to find guys. You're trying to look for things. Out of nowhere this week, out of friggin' nowhere, Divine Diablo decides he wants to play now, right? So I did a little Where's Waldo take. And, again, if you guys want to find me on Twitter, I'm IDP Hunter over there. All season long, Divine only had 9 tackles the whole year. That's it. His snap count was pretty low too, 66%, same 4%. Then all of a sudden last week, he gets a healthy 93% snap share. And this guy erupts like a volcano, right? He goes from 9 tackles all year to 6 tackles last week, and he throws a sack in at us. Again, he's only owned in 4% of leagues. These are 3 linebackers now that you can plug and play in your flex. Oh, and just for GP, he gave us a sack last week. So that's my guy. Those are my 3. If I had waiver wire priorities, I'm looking at Barnes, looking at Harris, I'm looking at Divine. But Steve, what says you? You got a couple players up your sleeve, don't you?
For sure. This is actually somebody that I got a ton of shares of in the past rookie drafts. But if you can get Trevin Wallace, obviously a couple weeks ago, he came on the scene with all those injuries there. Shaq Thompson out for the year. Josie Jewell hurt. And he had, 15 tackles in his first game?
Oh, yeah. Insane, man. Insane. Now, see, the only thing is, I wish I had you on a couple weeks ago because it's like chess moves. A lot of leagues I'm in, I can't get these players now. I cannot get them. But holy cow, man. If you're able to get there and get the Newtons and get the Trevor Wallses, more power to you.
For sure. He followed it up this week with 9 tackles, had a forced fumble and a fumble recovery. So, yeah, another huge week. And then on top of that, I know everybody's kind of worried, when Josie Jewell comes back because, Thompson's out for the year, right? But Jewell's, possibly going to come back this week, next week. But Cherilus, the other guy who's the LB2, he's still getting about 70% of the work. And so even if Jewell takes the green dot and he's the LB1, gets 100% snaps, there's still a role there for Trevin Wallace, and he's already shown to be a playmaker. So, if they're out there, if you're in a 16-team league or something like that, if you can get them, awesome. Another guy that I really like is Justin Sternad. Now,
nice.
I'll admit I kind of went crazy when Alex Singleton went down, Kingleton. And I put in a waiver claim for Quan Alexander, and I thought I was being sneaky because they signed him to the practice squad. They had him in for a workout, and that was fool's gold because Sternad's somebody that was already on the roster, and so now he's played 2 weeks as the LB2 next to Cody Barton. If you can get Barton, it's the green dot, but Sternad's a lot more likely to be available. In 2 full starts, he had 9 tackles against the Raiders, and he had 7 tackles against the Chargers. He's doing enough on the stat sheet with like a 70% snap share to be efficient and somebody you can put in a flex spot or, an LB 2 or 3 for your roster. So he's somebody that I really like, and I don't think he's done anything to make the Broncos pull him off the field at this point.
How do you say his last name? Because I always look at it. It's an eyesore, right?
Sternad
or whatever it is. But yeah, I was kind of late to the dance on him. Owned in 4% of leagues. I'm looking at him. I'm like, okay, he's an LB2. So what? But like you said, he's been hovering around 70% snap usage. That's good enough for LB2 numbers, the leagues we play in. What do you have? You said 7 tackles and a sack. I actually would go, this is a leap of faith, but I would go as far as to say he might actually be the better tackler over Cody Barton. He might be, but I'm definitely starting him. I got later to the dance, and you know what I thought was interesting what you said, Steve? You went after Quan Alexander, fool's gold. Just like I said earlier with my Harris take, hey, Aziz is hurt. Christian Harris, your guy. That could be fool's gold too. You just never know an IDP. We're trying to get 1 week ahead of our competition, But Sternard's been steady. That's a steady rock. That's a guy every week what he's capable of. But I'd be more than okay plugging him in a flex, if not better, during the bye weeks. I like that pick, Steve.
Yeah, thanks.
I think we covered the DLs and we covered the linebackers. I'll kick it back to you with some defensive backs. Who are you looking at this week?
So I saw on Sleeper that one of the best cornerbacks is only 8% owned. And I couldn't believe it, but it makes sense, right? Taron Johnson, he came back. He was hurt in week 1. This guy's been a routine, beast when it comes to cornerbacks. He's always at the top of IDP scoring for the position. And he has 8 tackles, and he picks off Aaron Rodgers at the end of the game. He's back, and he's just as good as ever. And at a position where there's a lot of uncertainty, he's somebody that if I can get him and start him at defensive back, I'm grabbing him ASAP.
With Taron Johnson too, I will play him in regular leagues, not just CB. I'll play him as DB3. You know what I mean? I will play him. He's got a good reputation. You're right. I've played in some heavy hitter leagues this year, and for some reason, he's like on waivers or cut. I'm like, what? You don't have an IR spot? What are you people doing? But he's back, and if you got him, good luck. He isn't owned in many leagues, surprisingly, 8%. So what are people doing on him? There's no more wait and see. Pick him up. So excellent pick there.
Yeah, and somebody else that I love, and I know you're a fan of them too, right? Now we're talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers again. Tyke Smith.
Nice.
I mean, this is somebody that, okay, so this week he only had 60% of snaps, and part of that is just
You hear
personnel.
that tea kettle brewing, Steve? He's ready to go. Tell the audience about Tyke Smith. If they're sleeping, they're going to wake up right now, my friend. Sorry, I had to do that, but that's my guy. I'm geeked up here.
Now, Tyke Smith is an absolute dog. You know, when we were trying to rank these safeties, these rookie safeties in the offseason, you know, there was Cole Bishop and Tyler Newbin. And, I mean, you know, we've seen flashes from other players and, you know, but Smith's somebody who's finally gotten on the field now. And he's really nailed down that nickel role for Tampa Bay. And he's just somebody that's always around the ball, and he's a playmaker. I mean, he's somebody that has, you know, multiple tackles for a loss. I mean, if you look at his stat line a couple weeks back, he had 11 tackles, 9 solo against the Falcons. And, you know, he had a forced fumble this week against New Orleans, 5 tackles, 3 solo. So it's tough with defensive backs, and you're trying to beat your competition and just try to get the next great player at the position. You know, it's tough to find quality dependent players, but Smith's somebody that's shown a high ceiling as far as tackling, and he's a playmaker in terms of forcing turnovers. And Tampa Bay is a defense that is gonna, you know, force a lot of turnovers. They're gonna be active. So he's somebody that I really love. And I mean, dynasty wise, he's definitely up for me. But for the rest of the year, I feel good that, you know, even if he's getting 60% snaps, he'll give you a certain floor. And if he gets, you know, 90% of snaps in a game, I mean, he could have some huge boom weeks.
So you were with us during the off season. We were doing all rookie rankings and stuff. And, you know, me and Steve, we play in these 32 leagues. I guess we can say we're degenerates, right? When you get to the third round, who the hell are you drafting? I tell you, I'm drafting these IDP defensive backs that people aren't paying attention to. You know, Tyke Smith came up a lot of times this offseason, only owned in 88% leagues. I think he profiles as a nickelback, Steve, if I'm not mistaken. But 2 weeks ago is when I put him on my waiver article, okay? He logged 86 snaps that week, 11 tackles, forced fumble, like you said. He's been getting around 80, 99% of snaps, give or take, right? The thing that's neat about him, he's a nickelback. And almost every single one of his, I'm going to say more than 3/4 of his plays are in the box. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I'm geeked up about that. Whenever you get a defensive back that plays in the box, you know what I mean? You go after that. And I'll tell you one more thing on him. I don't know if you know the guys over at the Pro Football Rookie and Analyst Center. They've been on my show a couple times. He was their number 1 defensive back this year over Newbin because, you know, they have that formula. And I'm like, wait a minute, are you sure? I like the guy. I didn't know how much I liked him. But, yeah, that's their guy. That's who they've been going after. Here it is, buddy. 60% of his snaps have been in the box as a kind of like a third linebacker type of thing. So whenever you get the opportunity to play a player like that as a defensive back, you win, especially to tackle premium leagues we play in. But yeah, that's definitely my dude. You got any others in this category?
Yeah, no, for sure. Riley Moss. So
Nice.
I'm curious how this is going to change with Surtain being out, if he is out for a little bit. But so Riley Moss, the second cornerback for Denver, obviously teams are afraid to throw it Surtain's way. So he's got 29 tackles, 5 pass deflections, an interception, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery in 6 games. I mean, this guy is at the top of cornerback scoring. And, I mean, as long as Surtain doesn't – I mean, do you have an idea what's his time frame as far as missing?
You know, I honestly don't. And I meant to look that up with Surtain. Those injuries, man, it's no telling, especially with defensive backs. But Surtain, I mean, again, I think I had Moss as one of my streamers because he's not owned in many places. I had him. I've been getting him late a lot of places. He's only owned 7% of leagues. What I was gonna say with Moss, though, don't be fooled. He's allowing 61.3% completion rate on him, but he's only given up one touchdown. So translation, what does that mean? They make the catch, boom, he knocks him down. He's getting, because Surtain's out, to Steve's point, he's getting the other team's wide receiver one. You know what I mean? So I think regardless of Patrick Surtain and what time he's supposed to be coming back, I think that Moss still has value. And fun fact for the audience, I don't know if they know this, he was the other corner with Cooper DeJean in college. So they were the two Jason Sehorn profile type players that were covering both sides, you know? But yeah, I don't really have a timeline. If you look at different websites, Steve, they're saying different things on that. Mm-hmm. So more to follow.
Yeah, for sure. No, he's definitely somebody that if you can get and Star, he's getting 100% snap share, and he's worth somebody to put in your defensive flex spot.
Yeah, I like him. I got one for you here, and this is going to require a little bit of chess work here. The name is Marte Mapu. We know this guy, the Patriots, right? I have him high. He's only owned in 2% of leagues. Again, when Kyle Duggar came back from injury, we were expecting him to kind of be pushed to the side, but he had his own role, didn't he? He got 88% of snaps last week. We thought Hawkins was going to be the guy rotating in. It wasn't. It was Mapu at 88. Hawkins had somewhere around 39%, something like that. And this is good news because Peppers is on the commissioner's exempt list, so he's not going to be anything anytime soon. Mapu offers a great long-term option at defensive back, and he has his own value because he's producing most of his snaps in the box role, and Duggar's playing more of the free out. So that's a player I'm targeting in my waivers if I can get him.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we definitely thought Hawkins was going to grab the other spot next to Duggar because he's kind of the more coverage player, but he only got about 40% of the snaps this week. I mean, they worked him in there a little bit, but Mapu, all you have to do is look at or listen to how Gerard Mayo speaks of him. I mean, he talks about Mapu like he's a 10-year veteran. So he obviously trusts him. He trusted him to wear the green dot before, and he's somebody that's he's one of those hybrid players, right? Like he's fast enough to be able to do coverage, but he's comfortable making plays in the box. And he's just one of those New England Patriot type of defenders that they draft. They're one of those small school guys that, it fits the type of roles they have. So, no, I'm a big fan of him going forward, and obviously plenty of opportunity.
Before we go on to streamer, Steve, I'm just going to throw, because defensive backs, they're dart throws. You might be able to find these guys in the leagues. I don't consider these guys streamers, but they might be out there for you. Tyler Nubin owned in 8% of leagues. He's got 40 tackles last 6 games. Tony Adam, a little bit more. He's 20% rostered. He's got 2 tackles. He's had 2 10-tackle games this year. I think he had 6 to 8 last week. And then I'll throw you some Brandon Jones. I know it was game script, but he got majority of his snaps in the box, which is what I target. Those are guys I'm looking at. And then I'll throw back Steve's guy. Steve's guy, he's been on this guy since the offseason. Steve has a guy, Amani Hooker, right? That's your guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Amani Hooker is somebody you can get later on. People don't really care or notice Amani Hooker. He's only on 60% of leagues. He's a 100% snap guy. He's got 25 tackles, interception, forced fumble through 6 games. Those are players you can pick up as your last dart throw in leagues. I don't consider them streamers. Well, if you're in a casual combo league, which a lot of our audience is, maybe they are. But for me, if you're playing basic IDP leagues like us, those guys should be owned, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think you know, obviously you want to look at snap counts. You want to, you know, as far as safeties anyway, you know, see who's getting the high percentage and just ride those guys. I mean, there's plenty of them available. And, you know, something that's a kind of a cool trend is that a lot of teams are, you know, especially like I'm a Packers fan, right? And so they have Xavier McKinney, and
Mm-hmm.
he's a very, very versatile defensive back, right? He has 5 interceptions. He'll play free safety, but he plays in the box. A lot of teams are playing, you know, these hybrid type of safeties where, you know, they rotate them both down into the box, and, you know, they want guys who can do coverage and can tackle. It's not, you know, it's moving away from, you know, we have one just free guy and one, you know, strong safety. A lot of teams are trying to start 2 hybrid guys and play two safeties, and then, you know, it gets a lot more difficult for the offense to operate because you don't know, you know, how they're going to move each safety within the scheme.
I like that. Going on with trends, like you're saying, Steve, I'm gonna stay here a little bit with you.
Mm-hmm.
The modern day NFL, when me and Steve used to start playing, it was 3-4, 4-3 defenses. The sub packages were dimes and nickels. Well, that changed in recent Patrick Mahomes like years, right? You can't keep up with that anymore, right? So teams are running 4-2-5 schemes or 3-3-5 schemes, right? They want as many defensive backs, nickels on the field. So what does that do? That decreases the role of the linebacker, right? That decreases the role. So many teams only have one every down linebacker now, maybe 2 at the most, but everyone else is a defensive back. So all of those guys are good and plenty. Same thing with defensive linemen. They're getting rotated in. A lot of them are good and plenty. So in our IDP leagues, linebackers a premium more than ever before. Not only scoring most points, but they're like a gold mine. They're like trying to find them, while the other guys have value, but they're a dime a dozen. But you got these 4-2-5 schemes. You got these 3-3-5 schemes. Teams are getting smart, aren't they, Steve? They're finding these nickel cornerbacks like these Tyke Smiths or Josh Metellus last year, and they're like, you know what? Can probably get away playing him a third linebacker. Or they can probably bring a safety down, make him a linebacker. Or what Steve just said, hey, what about these hybrids? Well, there's 2 ways to make a hybrid. And this is a great transition for one of our favorite dart throws. I kind of know who you're thinking of. How do I make a hybrid? I can make this linebacker guy that I can put in the coverage, kind of like a Divine Diablo. But traditionally, linebackers are slow, right? If you're playing a 4-2-5 and you're a quarterback, the easiest person to target is who? The linebacker. He's probably the least qualified for pass coverage, most teams, right? So the hybrid nowadays, they're finding these safeties, they're bulking them up, and now they're playing that third linebacker role. You're seeing a lot of that, aren't you, Steve, with your 11 personnel sets and what have you? Any thoughts there with that?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, obviously, you look at how the game has trended in terms of just like passing yards, right? It's become a passer's league. And in order to combat that, teams have had to adjust, have more defensive backs on the field. And as a result of that, we're actually seeing the average pass, you know, decrease because guys are having to check the ball down. They're having to throw, you know, it shorter because a lot of teams now are using a lot of cover 2, cover 4, cover 6, right? They have those 2 deep safeties, and they don't want to get beat deep. They will make you work 3 downs, get the first down, slowly move your way up the field, and they refuse to just get beat with one big play. And a lot of that, you know, comes down to, you know, having to make shorter plays. So I think I saw that for 2 high safeties in 2019, it was like 40% of the time the defense was called, and in 2024, it's like averaging 66% of the time now. So that just shows you, you know, where the game has gone and where defenses have had to kind of change in order to combat, you know, these high octane passing offenses.
You know what? On that note, too, I did this on a previous podcast because I was kind of fascinated. You would think a linebacker, regular Joe Schmo, you know, his regular linebacker, 3 down guy, you know, DeMario Davis, Kate Nelson. You would think that guy would produce in run defense. Most linebackers get their tackles in coverage because, like we said, the quarterback targets them nowadays. That's another trend that you'll see, right? So most teams, they run either man coverage or they run zone coverage, right? So most linebackers that are coverage linebackers, they tend to do a lot better with the scheme. And simply put, you're like, why is that, Steve? Well, I'm going to tell it. When you're in man coverage, you get your back turned, you're covering the wide receiver going downfield. You're not in the best position to make high impact plays. But when you're in a cover 2, a cover 4, a cover 6, those are your high premium percentages. When we did the math, Steve, cover 2s and cover 4s, those kind of linebackers produce the most kind of points, you know? But anyway, why is that? Because your back is turned the end zone. You're staring at the quarterback. You're kind of hovering around. You're in every position to make a play. So, yeah, the modern day NFL, you want the guys in coverage schemes. More specifically, you want the guys like the Ernest Jones, well, previously Ernest Jones with the Rams, but you want the guys like the Kaiser Whites, I guess, of the Cardinals. You want that coverage linebacker who owns all those snaps. You know, give me that. Give me the Eric Kendricks of the world, the guy that has all the snaps. So it's kind of interesting when you talk that and pull that up. Cover 2s and cover 4s, and then later on cover 6s, but those are the most producing. Now, I wouldn't change my rankings. I wouldn't say, oh, well, this guy here plays in man coverage, so I'm going to move him ahead of, Roquan Smith. No, that's just stupid. But if I'm matching apples and oranges and everything else is even, I would probably go that way. But that's an interesting trend as well, Steve. Do you have anything else in regards to that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting going forward to try to put a cap on this, that as defenses have combated, these passing offenses have more defensive backs on the field, and we see the offenses now kind of switch back to running the football a little bit more. How is that going to affect, everything's cyclical in the NFL, and just because the game, has become a passing league, but we're still going to see teams, work running the ball into their game plans. And at times, I just find it fascinating to see. I mean, like, look at the Bengals, right? This is a team that they have Jamar Chase, they have T. Higgins, they have plenty of talent at receiver, but they use a lot of personnel where they have 2 receivers. They don't use a third receiver and 11 personnel, and that it takes slot cornerbacks out of the game. It's like almost you want to just okay, whose offensive line, whose line in the trenches is gonna dominate here, and it's just something to consider in the future. I'm always thinking about these things. Where's the league going to go, and how is IDP going to change?
On that note, too, I was actually this is my final trend here. I was talking to Tacklebox over at the RPO Network. They run phenomenal. We always talk about over at RPO. We talk about our rankings. We talk about our every down linebackers. We talk about our personal articles, the waivers, injury reports, what have you. But we also have a betting site. Those guys are over 75% correct. So if you guys are into betting, check it out. Tacklebox runs that program. I was talking to him the other day, and we were talking about 11 personnel. Teams that play in that one tight end, one running back, 11 personnel, right? The slot corners in those are phenomenal. You always want to target teams. Like, I think we were talking about the Dallas Cowboys are one of the most 11 personnel type teams. You always want to target the slot corner of those kind of weeks. Those are things that are exciting because old school IDP, like we kind of just punted cornerbacks. We kind of forgot about those guys, but now they're still relevant. Now they still have power. Guys, check out the RPO. This is just a taste. We're just giving you some of the examples of some of the stuff we write. 2 things here. Save $10 off RPO yearly subscription if you type in IDP Hunter. The other side I'm on the Fantasy 6-pack. And for this final category, I'm going to read some of the stuff I do over there. I do this thing called the IDP Waiver Wire article each week. I have over 50 players in here. Most of them are under 10% roster owned. It's for every single format. I have it on the screen. If you guys get a chance, check out the Fantasy 6-pack. More specifically, my rankings or my IDP waiver wire article. Steve, on that note, if we're fishing up a stream here, I know you're a fisherman. So if we're fishing up a stream, who do you got as far as streamers go? If you're throwing dart throws, maybe guys that we missed off of waivers. I know we're kind of thinking the future here, but guys that may not be popular names now, but maybe in a week or two, that might be somebody I can slot, especially during the bye weeks when all this stuff's kind of important. Do you have any streamers you could think of? And, any category, DL, linebacker, defensive back. You're a fisherman, so I'm expecting.
Yeah, I think I can give you a name here. So I'm a Packers fan, right? And one of the big draft picks they had was drafting Edgerrin Cooper in the 2024 draft.
Nice.
The Packers, they have a weird relationship with linebacker. They had like AJ Hawk forever and Nick Barnett, and it's been weird. And then they tried to just patchwork it for a decade. And so, but all this to say, Quay Walker's the guy there, right? He's the LB1. As far as how good he actually is, he definitely makes me scratch my head a lot. But as far as LB2, Isaiah McDuffie was the guy coming into the year. But now Cooper has finally surpassed him this week against the Cardinals. He had more snaps than McDuffie. McDuffie wasn't hurt. So I think this is somebody that's going to see more snaps. I think he's going to eat into McDuffie's role more and more. And the Packers love to do this. They love to blood their young defensive players in slowly. They don't usually just toss a guy out there and start him right, as a rookie, like game one, like, all right, good luck, go and swim. Usually they slowly bring them in, and then, they eventually give them the responsibility and the role. So Edgerrin Cooper is somebody, if you can get him in a redraft league, he's somebody that's going to see more snaps going forward here. And the best thing about him, he's a damn good pass rusher. He's got those moves to get to the quarterback, and that's a big bonus for linebackers if he can add that.
If I may too, Steve, the Packers, which is your team, historically they draft really well. They got a very good, as far as depth charts and cores, they got great room of people. And usually historically they kind of let those players grow like the second, third year, right before the rookie contract. You see these guys pop. We've seen the fall of Isaiah McDuffie. I kind of tweeted this week. He's kind of not playable for me right now. I've been trying to trade off him. Week 1, 97% snap count, right? Week 2, 89% snap count. He's falling off a cliff. Week 3, 78. Let's keep going. Week 4, 76. Week 5, 59%. Week 6, 45%. Yikes. Yeah, it's clearly there's an LB2 movement right now, and Cooper's your guy. Excellent dart throw. Excellent dart throw there. I'm gonna kind of switch it over to you if I'm looking at DL, kind of like punts, kind of curious to see what happens here. There's a couple players that you might be able to get depending on how deep your league is, depending on how deep your size of your league is. So I guess we should start with the Lions, right? There's a guy on nowhere. His name is Isaac UKWU. I don't know him. Steve's going to lie to you. He's going to pretend he profiled this guy. I don't know him. No, I'm kidding. Do you know him? I don't know. But what I do know is he's the potential replacement for Hutchinson. That's a stream if there ever was one, if you need a guy. And then me and you both like Derek Hall, owned in 19% of leagues. He is he's everything I want him to be. Coming out the opposite year of Boye Mafe, second-round picks. Those are dynasty stashes to me. But those are my two on the DL. I don't know if you have anybody else as far as dart throws go.
Not at the moment.
Yeah, there's tons of DTs you can stream each week. Yeah. I'm not going to read the whole entire article, but if you guys want to check out my work, the Fantasy Six Pack, go on over there and check it out. But there's so many players you guys can get. I'm trying to chase things for the future. Like I'll give you two more just for a bonus. Dante Fowler owned in 1% of leagues. He's getting around 50% of snap usage. He got 3 sacks in 2 games. The Commanders are using him. He's got matchups against the Packers, Bears, and Giants. If you're deep enough, take a shot at guys like that. If you're deep enough, check this name out. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Javonte Jean-Baptiste. He plays for the Commanders, owns 0% of leagues. He's a 24-year-old dynasty stash to me. Okay, he's the injury replacement for Doris Armstrong. So he'd be the next man up, and he has a penchant for making sacks. I believe he had one this week. But that's all I have for DL. That's all I have for linebacker. Steve, what are you looking for dart throws, streamers for defensive backs? You got anybody?
Yeah, so as far as defensive back, if you can get him, and I know he kind of popped a couple of weeks ago, but Isaiah Polamau,
Nice.
correct?
Yeah.
For the Raiders. I mean, this is somebody that, we remember him from last year, right? He kind of had like a cup of coffee and taken over at safety there. But, I mean, this is somebody that's a very athletic player. And what I like about him is I love players that have high ceilings, right? Like, I don't want to just start a guy and then, he gets 4 tackles and that's about, you get 8 points and IDP 1, 2, 3. Like, that's boring to me. I want a guy who's going to go out there and cause turnovers. And this is somebody that, he's a little bit of a ball hawk. So, he had a sack a few games ago, and he had against the Steelers 7 tackles, and just a really athletic player, really dangerous player, and he's got it in his pocket to do more. And if you can stash him on your roster, I think he's somebody that's worth keeping. And just seeing him grow into the role more.
And then also, if you look at salary cap leagues, he kind of is that hybrid player that we were talking about earlier, right? Mm-hmm. He's coveted. He comes right in day one. He gets a sack. I didn't really have him profiled. He's more of a special teamer. He's kind of in and out, but he knows that team system. He's the direct replacement for Marcus Epps, who's gone for the season. So he's definitely playable for me. I've been playing him a lot of places, my DB3 type situation. Mm-hmm. But the thing about him is, I believe he's 24 years old. I believe Epps is 29, and he's on the final year of his contract. So for you players out there that are playing in salary cap type of leagues, this may be the direct replacement, and you can get him now on the cheap.
For sure. It's like last year when the Bills basically did a whole restructure of their defensive back room, and Taylor Rapp was just sitting there, and they gave him a 3-year contract for cheap in terms of, and if you look at the Raiders too, they traded Devontae Adams today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're going into a rebuild with Antonio Pierce, and this is somebody that could have a future with them going into next year if you're in Dynasty, just because, they're not going to want to splash out these big free agent deals when they're trying to rebuild things. I mean, they're obviously trying to shed some salary, and, hey, players that know the system and, can excel in it. I mean, they're worth keeping around and starting. So he's somebody that could have value for like dynasty leagues, like 32-man leagues, deeper leagues like that.
Yeah, I'm going to throw a couple dart throws because like defensive back, I really don't put a lot of interest in them. I kind of just throw them out to the water and bring them back, like literally a fishing reference. But there's a couple guys that are just not owned. Damar Hamlin, I don't know what people's problem is with Damar Hamlin. He's owned in 5% of leagues. He's certainly streamable. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. Actually, 6 of 7 weeks, Steve. He's been 100% snap guy. The week before, he was 92. But he's been getting 10, 5, 3, 9, 7 tackles a game. You can easily stream Hamlin. Another name is Deshaun Elliott, the Steelers, 12% of leagues. He's not the most popular name. He's the second fiddle to Mika Fitzpatrick. But sometimes you want the second fiddle, right? Sometimes he makes the play because you're trying to throw away from the top player. He has 45 tackles in 6 games. And another name I'll throw, Jalen Jones. He's getting a bit owned now, Jalen Jones. He's rising up the chart, but he's had 39 tackles in 6 games. Why not take a shot at some of these guys? That's all I got for this podcast, Steve. What any closing thoughts? Tell the audience where they could find you.
Yeah, so I'm at on X at Big Steve FF. And like Steve said, I write the waiver column at RPO Football. And so, hey, you know what? It's week 7. Just dropped that article today. And this is the time of year when, people, it's easy to kind of, okay, in our waiver article and my team's good. But it's the people that just stay diligent, that make moves throughout the season, that wind up winning in the end. Never rest on your laurels, never get comfortable with your roster, because one week you might you think you have a lot of depth at position, and then a few injuries, and then you're scrambling looking for a player to put into your lineup, and then you're gonna wish that you had been more active on the waivers. So yeah, read that every week, and just keep grinding.
Couple notes for you before we head out here and close it. You see that little mini football helmet I got, the IDP Hunter one? There's a website, one of my sponsors actually. It's called Brainy Busters. If you guys ever want to go to brainyballers.com, excuse me, that's the name of it, brainyballers.com products. If you guys are interested in getting a little mini helmet, maybe with your logo in it, if you type in IDP Hunter 15, you could save off an additional 15%. The work is very, very quality. I'm very excited with my little mini helmet. I'll be taking that to the Kings Classic with me next year, trying to represent. And then the other sponsor I have, we have 2 here. Steve, you're familiar with the IDP Center. I know you're in the Discord. Very fun place. Very fun place to play IDP. They got a trade calculator, which is by far the best trade calculator I've seen out there, because, different leagues need different context. So it's broken down by your scoring, but they have custom leagues for anybody. They have free leagues. They have best ball leagues. They have dynasty leagues, money leagues, you name it. But it's a custom league. They also do custom league analysis. We have over 350 expert analysts in there, and they do sit starts. They do dynasty drafts. They do power rankings. They do these 10-page reports every week, Steve. And they also have a Grade My Streamer article. I'm over here. I do the DL stream of the week. I write, put my stuff out here. But there's an underground community. It's off Reddit, TheIDPCenter.com. This is their website. It's pretty fascinating stuff. If you type in the promo code now, and this thing has been growing all off season, but if you type in the promo code IDP Hunter, you'll get an additional 10% off all the custom league analysis that they have to offer. So this is the IDP Center. And then this guy may be coming on next week, maybe. I don't know are you familiar with Smash Up Sports at all, Steve? It's kind of like Pokemon meets fantasy football. They were in my they were at the expo, and I thought this was kind of neat. I mean, I personally don't play, I'm an old guy, but there are people out there. Let me just show you a couple of the cards they have. If your defense team wins this week, you score an additional 15 points. Imagine doing that in the leagues we play in. Or if my quarterback gets sacked, you get double the IDP. Like, there's so many cool different ways to play this game. But check out the IDP Center. Check out the IDP Center. Check out the Smash Up Sports. Check out the Mini Busters. Check out the RPO Network. Check out Fantasy Six Pack. And last but not least, check out Steve. Steve, I appreciate you, my friend. I appreciate your friendship. You've been grinding this whole entire off season, buddy. Tell the audience where they could find you again, your handle.
At Big Steve FF.
Gotcha. Yeah, I really enjoyed doing this podcast with you. We covered a lot of names this podcast, and we have plenty more in the old head. Have people check us out. Enjoy. Steve, before we head out, any closing thoughts?
Well, we're kind of at the halfway point. So, like I said, keep up on those waiver articles, keep those waiver claims coming. And, we have a long way to go. But, keep grinding and get those championships.